What's up guys, T here. Today we're going to be taking a look at fleet composition. Specifically, naval groups such as capital fleets, sub-destroyers, convoy raiding, and my own little special one I like to call hunter killers. So for the capital fleet, I wanted it to fit all within a level 10 harbor capacity usage. So if we're not familiar with that, if you hover over airport capacity, it's 100 points. Every level adds 10 points, so 1 is 10, 20, and etc. So each ship running through how much capacity each one takes up, and this is standard across all years. 1, 1, 1, 1.5, 2, 4, 2, and then a half. So you got to play with the numbers when you're building these fleets because you want them to fit within that capacity, because if they don't, when they go to repair, if all the ships are there, the repair process will go much slower because the report's over capacity. So that's just something to be aware of. With my capital ships, my capital fleet, I shot to have it in with a capacity of 100, which is a level 10 base. And what I did was 5 carriers, 8 battleships, 2 super battleships, 17 heavy cruisers, 29 light cruisers, and 20 destroyers. And that'll get you a capacity of exactly 100. Now the reason I did what I did was to have a decent amount of carriers to have naval bombardments as well as fighter support. 8 battleships, you have your, ship of the line kind of feel to it. Have the firepower, have the bombardment if you need it for naval invasions and different things like that. 2 super battleships, really to hammer that naval invasion and bombardment, as well as if you run into enemy battleships or carriers, they're going to be able to hit those targets and they're going to have the firepower to sink them fast. You don't want a lot of them, but you do like to have that extra firepower here and there. I did 17 heavy cruisers because they are that faster but still pack a punch. So they're going to be able to engage your lighter cruisers, your destroyers, where the battleships might have a harder time hitting them. And then 29 light cruisers, because again, they can engage the faster ships, but really the thing comes down is they detect surface ships, they detect submarines. They have some of the best anti-air for the production cost. They are fast, nimble, and evasive while still being armored. I've seen light cruisers, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, that light cruisers can be claimed to be overpowered, and it's just because of that combination of attributes. They need to be backed up for the fleet to be effective, but as a single ship, they are pretty well-rounded. And then I did the destroyers for their sub-detection ability and their sub-destruction ability. Obviously, I want to protect those larger ships that cannot evade the torpedoes and get those submarines out of there as fast as possible. The next naval group I'd like to talk about is the sub-destroyer flotillas. So what you use this for is if you have a nasty little group of enemy submarines that you can't seem to find, you're going to want to use this formation. And what it is I would do 3 destroyers to every 1 cruiser. And a good number would probably be 9 destroyers to 3 cruisers, or 12 destroyers to 4 cruisers, and have that be in a flotilla and set them to search and destroy. Now the reason to use both is that the destroyers are going to be able to have the extra sub detection, as well as the light cruisers are going to have sub detection. Both can engage, but your light cruisers are going to have the extra surface detection in order to see incoming enemy vessels in case that happens to come across you. So you're going to have that extra warning that, hey, an enemy battleship's coming up to take out your destroyer flotilla, better back off. So the cruisers are there for that support role, as well as to be able to engage. Maybe if you run across an enemy destroyer flotilla, the light cruisers are going to be able there to handle the extra firepower. So that's the advantage of having the light cruisers in there, guys. And what you're going to want to do with it is just set them on a search and destroy within whatever region you think the subs are operating in. The next group I'd like to talk about is convoy raiding. Now I'm going to break this into 3 parts, and the first part I'm going to talk about is if you are convoy raiding in a port of sea that is uncontrolled by your navy, as in you don't have a capital fleet, you don't have the ability to patrol the area, so you're going to actually need to stay pretty covert so you don't get just absolutely destroyed by the enemy navy. And what I would do for this is 3-to-1 ratio of subs to destroyers. So 3 subs for every 1 destroyer that you put in. And the reason behind this, guys, is to have the extra surface detection from the destroyers, because subs have really poor surface detection. But the thing is, if you do destroyers, since they have such low surface visibility, these ships are still going to be really hard to detect. So you're going to get away with the stealthiness, and you're going to be more effective in finding the enemy convoys on the actual sea. So that's the nice thing about having the destroyers in there. If you're losing your destroyers, if the enemy navy is just that prevalent, then just cut them entirely. But if you can have them in there, they will help you find enemy convoys on the surface. Next part I'd like to talk about is if you have partial control of the territory. If you have a navy in there, you can't engage all the time, you can't quite police it all the way, but you can put up a fight. So what I would do then is a 1-to-1 ratio of sub to destroyers. Again, for that extra surface detection of finding those subs, or finding those escorts, excuse me. And then moving on, if you have total control, you have a full capital fleet patrolling the area you're trying to convoy raid in, you just need someone to go in dedicated to finding those convoys and destroying them. What would be a good mix is a 3 to 3 to 1 ratio of 3 subs to 3 destroyers to every 1 light cruiser you have. So I would do, a good example would be 6 subs, 6 light cruisers, and 6 subs, 6 destroyers, and 2 light cruisers. The reason I'm putting the light cruisers in there is just extra firepower, and again, they have the best surface detection, so that's going to be even better than the destroyers for finding the convoys on the surface. So that's going to be your #1 way to do that. And finally, guys, is a special group I came up with while actually doing the research for this video that I thought would be extremely useful, is what I call a hunter killer. And what that will be is a ratio of 1 heavy cruiser to 1 light cruiser to half amount of destroyers. So what this is going to be used for, guys, is breaking off from a main fleet or just having a round from your main fleet. Is if you have an engagement between 2 capital fleets and you win, and the enemy is limping home with wounded battleships, wounded carriers, wounded cruisers, you can send and detach this section to pursue, because they're going to be faster than your main fleet, considerably faster actually, and they're going to be able to catch up and destroy these remaining vessels. That's what the hunter killer name obviously comes from. And the reason you're going to want to do the 1-to-1 a half is 1 for heavy cruisers because of their ability to have that high firepower and a fast package. 1 of the light cruisers because of their ability to surface detect and still have firepower. And then half of the destroyers, half the amount of destroyers, because of their ability to sub-detect, so you can protect those little bit less evasive heavy cruisers just in case there's some enemy submarines looking to pick off chasers. So that's my hunter killer. The other thing that you can use hunter killer flotillas for, guys, is actually using them for convoy escorts. They're really good at that as well. So if you're doing a naval invasion or just need to move some troops, you can dispatch a small flotilla like this to actually escort that convoy through that section of sea. So they're really good at that as well. Alright guys, that just about does it for my fleet composition video. If you have any extra questions for me, or if you have any comments you'd like to say, please do leave them in the comment section below. A quick note is I'm going to be using the last minute or so of this video after this outro to answer a Paradox forum user's question about UK naval composition as limited by naval production capabilities. So stick around if you'd like to hear about that. Otherwise, guys, if you like this video, please smack that like button, hit subscribe, and as always, guys, thanks for watching. So just a quick shout here to Spenny. Spenny, with the UK Navy, actually they have a very sizable navy to begin with, and what you can do is actually form a full capital fleet pretty much right off the bat. And if you want to patrol the native area around the UK, or whatever else you want to do with it, because the German Navy or the Italian Navy, your capital fleet that you form, if you use the tutorial I had in this video, it's going to be greater and stronger than either of those. So you're going to have the advantage right off the bat. You're also going to have extra destroyers to patrol to take out German submarines. They're going to harass your transport cargo ships, as well as you're going to have submarines available to harass both the Italian and German shipping industry. So what you're going to want to do is I would recommend establishing a capital fleet to do patrolling with fire at will along the Baltic Sea, the Eastern North Sea, and then the English Channel. And what you're going to be able to do with that is actually cut off most of the early German shipping and then adjust from there as obviously the game progresses. And then I would also, if you become more with the Italians, I would use submarines to cut off the Western Mediterranean and the Eastern Mediterranean Sea, as that's going to cut off a lot of Italian shipping. You can use those convoy raiding submarine groups down there. As far as what you would build right off the beginning of the game, I would recommend producing light cruisers, heavy cruisers, to bolster up just your overall number. And then destroyers and submarines as needed if you see fit for extra destroyer or submarine flotillas for convoy raiding. Alright, Spenny, thanks for your question. See you guys in the next one.